Hi guys, this is Tina from Shabbydabbydoodah. Welcome back to my channel. So I'm here with a book which I'm going to make into an altered book. So I have already kind of been through the process of tearing the pages out and gluing them together and what have you. Now whenever I do an altered book, I like to paint the pages. So I've kind of got as far as literally just painting one or two of the pages. Oops, I've now got them stuck together where I was too impatient to wait for the paint to dry. But I have not got very far at all, as you can probably see. But I would like to do this journal very much a vintage, you know, with a vintage vibe to it. So, you know, I tend to struggle with kind of neutral things. I tend to struggle with using some of my vintage ephemera because, of course, I don't want to, you know, use it when I've only got kind of those bits. But yeah, I thought time to actually use some of those vintage bits and pieces that we buy. So I've made a few little pockets with some vintage book pages. So already I've got a vintage kind of feel going on there with some vintage book pages. Obviously I need to paint the rest of these pages. I will probably kind of do that as and when, you know, and we'll just kind of crack on though and, you know, get started in this journal as it is. So let's kind of just drag in some bits and pieces. So I've brought along, a whole bunch of different vintage kind of pieces that hopefully we can kind of make some really nice bits and bobs from. So let's just pull in a handful of things here. Oops, like that. Okay. Oh, sorry, I'm struggling to even handle any of this stuff. So yeah, who knows how the rest of this video is going to go. But anyway, so let's pull those out. So I've got a few glassine bags and things like that. Now, these were gifted to me by the lovely Jessica Rapp. Now, I have to say, quite a long time ago in a Happy Mail swap that we did. And yeah, she very kindly gifted me some really awesome things. And it was much before I'd even started collecting anything. So I had very little in my, you know, in my supplies. So yeah, I was very lucky to have been, you know, able to do a swap with her. And she had, you know, amazing things in her supplies. So straight away, we can kind of crack on with that. Now, one of these things was obviously this postcard. Now, it's got obviously text on the back. Personally, for me, if I'm going to try and do something quite neutral, quite vintage, I would probably prefer to use the back of this rather than the front of this. I don't know what date this is dated. Oh, I can't actually see, but yeah, might be 20... might even be 2011, although it feels older than that. I'm not sure, to be perfectly honest. I can't really see. It's got 20 something, but I think that might be 20, you know, and then that might be the month. And then anyway, it's got some other bits and pieces on there. Now, as you can see, it's become a bit damaged. So I want to probably cut this down, maybe getting rid of some of that kind of damaged edge. So I'm just going to cut this down here. Plus this particular book that I'm using, it's a children's book. It's not the biggest, so my pages are not particularly huge, so I kind of need to bear that in mind obviously when I'm making things. So for instance, the book page pockets that I've made, I've trimmed them down so they're much slimmer. Even that, as you can see, it's going the full width of the page. So, you know, I really have to be very mindful of, you know, just how big my bits and pieces are, because they're not going to actually end up fitting in here if I'm not careful. So obviously, for instance, that postcard, I would probably prefer to do on this page, actually. I'm always a bit funny when there's a fold. I don't like sticking bulky things on the fold that's bulging, if that makes sense. So what I mean by that is this rounded edge, because I just think it's much easier, you know, and for sort of long-term durability, it's better to put them on the flatter edge. You know, they're going to stay stuck down a lot better if you've put them on the flatter edge. So that's that there. Now I'm just going to take, this is my household emulsion, and you know, I talked about this tons and tons of times. I use this really often. Well, I say really often when I do altered books. I have to say I haven't particularly done many altered books recently, but when I do like to just use, you know, household paint to get rid of the text. So this is a crown paint. It's just, you know, matte paint that you would paint your living room with, or, you know, your rooms in your house with. It's crown and it's called Antique Cream. Again, I've given all these details before, you know, because I'm really boring and I just really love this colour. It's a kind of true cream. It, you know, it looks really lovely. I like it in my house as well. And yeah, it's just one of those kind of timeless that I never get sick of paint colours. So there we go. We don't even need to paint in the middle really, because that's going to obviously be covered up with the postcard. So just going to blow dry that with my heat tool. Oops, maybe I'm not, because it's not actually plugged in. So bear with me 2 seconds. Oh my goodness. Okay. Okay. And, you know, the other good thing is with this household emulsion, it really takes only a few seconds to dry. Particularly when you actually heat it up with the heat tool, you know, you're going to find it dries very, very, very quickly. So, you know, you can see it's literally taken seconds there to dry. Now, obviously my postcard is, you know, it is vintage, but it's quite white. So I'm just going to obviously ink this up with my vintage photo. And this is just the usual vintage photo distress ink, you know, the Ranger distress ink. It's the distress ink rather than the oxide, but yeah, it is in vintage photo. So it just gives it a, you know, a vintage vibe, doesn't it, by doing that. So, yep, let's pop that there. Now, what I'm thinking is I might try and put something else vintagey coming from that postcard. So, for instance, here, we've got this gorgeous little photograph. Really lovely. It's just got a tiny bit of print on the back. And we might be able to somehow attach that onto here. Now I've got to be truthful and say, you know, more often than not, I just literally would fold, you know, fold the photograph to actually attach that on, because for me that's, you know, that's good enough. That is a hinge. Why kind of make work for yourself? But if you wanted to add a hinge, what you could do is obviously, whoops, sorry, move my teacup from earlier. Just use something thicker. So for example, here I've got this, you know, sheet music cover, which is kind of sturdy. I'm not sure how sturdy it will be once I get folding it. It's got to be said. But yeah, I mean, hopefully it would be sturdy enough. So go to a sort of, you know, more colourless section here, for example. Put that down and yeah, cut it out. Okay, like that, and then just fold that over to create your hinge. So just going to trim that down slightly more, like that. Okay, and then what you can do is then attach that onto your photograph and onto your postcard. So I'm just going to quickly attach that now. Hopefully this is going to be, you know, sturdy enough. So just attach that. I've just done it the full length of that postcard. Sorry, I mean photograph. I must stop calling it a postcard, because of course it's not a postcard, it is a photograph. But it is vintage, so yeah, it is in fact a vintage photograph. Right, glue that down. If you've got some resistant bits, I'm just going to go in with my hot glue, because that's just, you know, nice and instant. And just on those corners, because obviously this photograph is thickish, you know, it can sometimes just be a bit resistant to the wet glue. Not permanently resistant, but resistant as in, you know, gluing down quickly. It's going to take a little bit longer because it's thick. So yeah, if you want to kind of just beat the process, then of course you could just use a little dab of hot glue, maybe just at the edges to, you know, secure that down nice and quickly. Saves you just holding it and pressing it in. So like that. And then I'm just going to attach that onto that postcard. And straight away, that's made an absolutely gorgeous little pocket. But, oops, with the added interest of obviously the little foldy flap photograph. So just glue that down. And again, just press that down for a few minutes because it obviously, you know, needs a bit of pressing like that. And that's it. And then you've got obviously your journaling space there, you know, what was the back of the photograph. And that can then just glue onto that page, which, how gorgeous does that look? I just absolutely love how that looks. And then on the facing page, again, in with my lovely bundle from Jessica Rapp, I received these beautiful glassine sort of envelopes and bags. I think they are vintage. They seem like they're vintage. They kind of feel vintage. So I might just quickly ink them up a little bit. They, I think, must have been to hold stamps. They've got some sort of writing on them, which probably was saying how many stamps were contained within the packet. I don't know. But yeah, they feel like, you know, I've bought stamps, I think, in these little packets. So I'm pretty sure that they were just, you know, packets for stamps, really. So like that. Okay. Now, do we want to have any lace or anything? I know this is kind of going against what I said about using just vintage things, but I just can't go without the lace. So let me just see whether I've got some vintagey lace. Got this, which, oh my goodness, how gorgeous is this? This was gifted to me, I think, in a Happy Mail, and I've obviously been, you know, I have been using it. But yeah, I'm coming to kind of the end now. So now, of course, I'm not really wanting to use it very much. I'm wanting to just hoard it. But it is really perfect on there, if you can see that. It just looks gorgeous, doesn't it? So let's just glue that lace down on the edge. Just hanging off that page a little bit. Okay. Now this, do we want to have any twine or anything going around it? Let's just see. Got this black and white. I mean, it looks fine without, but it's more, I'm thinking, you know, when you come to be using the journal, is it going to be better if it's actually done up? So I'm just inking the twine up, because obviously the twine is not vintage. Don't want it looking too bright. I mean, it's black and white, but yeah, I don't want it having a bright appearance. So, you know, I want it to look very vintage, this whole journal. So, okay. And, you know, I'm intending on using mainly vintage things in here. Who knows? Who knows whether I will manage to do that, because I will probably get sort of a, you know, so far in and then be kind of, oh no, I've barely got anything left. I don't want to use anymore, and start hoarding things, you know. That's what normally would happen. You know, because obviously vintage things, you know, it's hard to part with them, isn't it? Because they're one-off things and we can't then just get more of them. Once they're gone, they're gone. Okay. So, like that. I mean, to be honest, I think it's nice with or without the twine, really. I, you know, don't necessarily say the twine is needed. I don't necessarily think it's, you know, needed or not needed. But I'm just going to add it on there. And then, you know, whoever gets this journal, I mean, if they don't like it, they can just cut it off. They don't have to, you know, they don't have to keep it, do they? So, yeah, it's an option. Oops, an optional piece that they can either keep or not. So, oops, glue that down. Oh my goodness. Obviously getting really gluey here, and so the glue is sticking to my hands more than it's sticking to the piece. Okay, right, let's decorate now the facing page. So this little glassine bag here. So let's have a look at my sheet music covers, which, like I say, they're here from something else I was working on. And I just happen to have this, which, how gorgeous is this? Oh, how gorgeous does that look? So I'm just going to tear it down slightly, because otherwise it's a little bit kind of weird shape for the bag. So like that. Oh, like that, I think. So that looks lovely, doesn't it? Now, pull in a little bit of... This is not vintage lace. This is just my kind of go-to lace that I just love using. But yeah, because I can't really be so generous with that other lace because I'm coming to the end of it, you know, I do want to still incorporate lace. So if we can just use some of this, it's a good compromise, isn't it? So I've just inked it up so it looks again a little bit more authentically vintage. Might just ink around this again, not that it necessarily needs it, because it is, you know, it is a genuine vintage piece and it is quite discoloured. You can probably see the sort of mottled, I think that's kind of damp, those weird marks on it, but hey, hard to see exactly. But pop that on like that. Okay, now, do I want anything else on there, is the question. So we're going to put it like that. Just wondering whether I could have a wax seal. So let me just see what wax seals I've got. Whether I just happen to have any that are the right colour. I mean, of course, that would just be way too easy, wouldn't it, to actually have some that are suitable. I've got this, oops, this little pinky red one, which that's not too bad, is it? So I might have something like that down there. I mean, you don't even have to have that bag down at the bottom. You could have it kind of at the top, really. Right, I'm going to glue this piece down. So I'm just going to, actually I'm going to hot glue this down. It sounds overkill, but it's just, again, so I don't have to worry about pressing it down for ages. It is just, you know, just stuck then. And I am also gluing it slightly over the lace because we only glued that lace just along the bottom, really. So I've kind of secured it now with the postcard there. So like that. Okay, right. Let's pop this down now. So put a bit of glue on there to hold that lace. And then this piece here. Okie dokie. Like that. That's very pretty, isn't it? I mean, this is very different for me, this kind of style of, you know, less is more. Because as you know, I'm normally a bit of a more is more person, so this is a bit of a struggle for me to kind of keep it neutral and keep it sort of minimalistic. You know, that's not my natural leaning at all. So yeah, this is kind of like, you know, kind of hard to do. Right, might even be able to get away with a pink one. We'll just see. Okay, right, press this down a bit more. So this whole glassine bag then can then glue down over here. Now I'm thinking glue this as maybe a tuck spot. And I think, yeah, I think maybe let's go for that higher up. I don't know why my automatic thing is to put it low down. You know, it could just as easily be placed higher on the page. So let's do that. Okay. Press that down there and there. Just going to give this a helping hand slightly with the hot glue. Just again, because that's going through the lace, I felt like it just, you know, it was wanting to lift. So just by helping it along slightly with the hot glue. Okay, right, now let's just have a look at that ribbon. I mean, I had said I wanted to keep this quite neutral, didn't I? So straight away, you know, that ribbon is not neutral, it's pink. So I'm already falling at the first hurdle. I mean, oh, what's wrong with me? But that being said, it does look quite pretty on there, doesn't it? Or we could have that. I mean, that's also quite pretty. Or I have got, I'm so sorry about my really squeaky chair. It's getting actually worse and worse. It's just like an old kitchen stool. And yeah, it's pretty rickety, isn't it? So let's just glue this round. Just so that I can just have a look and see what this would look, you know, with a neutral one. So 1, 2. Oh, that's quite nice, isn't it? I mean, this definitely, can you see, for me, this is really hard to keep this really neutral because I just love colour so much. So for me, this is very, very hard to actually just keep this, you know, neutral and not kind of add a bit of pink or something. So yeah, what do you guys think? What would you go for? Would you keep this neutral or do you think that's just really boring? Very hard. Well, I wish I could hear you guys and you could tell me which you think. Do we prefer neutral or do we prefer the pink? I mean, I can't help but just think I do love the pink, which, oh, what is wrong with me? Why can I not just stay with the neutral? I mean, I do also love it like that. That's also very, very pretty, isn't it? Let's just try this one again. I mean, that is lovely, and that's the type of thing that I would see on somebody else's channel and think, oh my goodness, how gorgeous does that look? And yet when I come to do it, I just struggle to actually then go with just something so colourless. Oh, I'm going to go with the pink. You just knew that I was, didn't you? Couldn't quite manage to pull off just neutral. Right. Who knows? Maybe I will do another page neutral. Let's see. I'm just going to cut this down slightly. Not that I'm having a struggle with the shape, to be fair. But yeah, we'll just see. I'm still kind of like, oh, shall I go for the neutral? The thing is, I feel like if I go with the neutral, I will then look back at this and think, oh gosh, that's so boring. I just am, yeah, drawn to the pink. Let's just go to the pink. At the end of the day, you have to just go with where your heart pulls you, don't you? Because otherwise, you know, you're going to make it and not then be quite happy with the finished result. So that's how I feel a bit. Is, you know, I might not be quite happy with the finished thing. So shall we have a little flower or something down here maybe? Over there. Okay. So yeah, now do I want to ink around a little bit just around my pages? They are the painted pages, like I say. So just giving them a little bit of aging just around the edges, you know, and again, don't have to get too hung up on how neat it's looking. I just wanted a little bit of sort of aging going on there. So yeah, looking good. Loving how that's looking. Wow, that's a really, really, really calm and understated page for me because, yeah, I don't really do calm and understated very often. So that's, yeah, unusual for me. So let's go over now. Let's just flick around. I know I've said this lots of times before, but when I make a journal, I do like to just flick around in it. Again, just because I don't want to have kind of very similar pieces all next to each other. And sometimes that can happen, you know, I don't know, even if you do it on, say, different days of the week, you know, not meaning because it's connected with the days of the week, but, you know, different days, one day you might be really feeling, you know, for example, today, feeling the pink, you know, tomorrow I might not be feeling the pink. And if I've done consecutive pages, I might kind of not be very happy because I might have like then a glut of, you know, pink sort of pages. And then for the next couple of times I work on it, have a glut of something else, which if you flick around in your journal, I just think it's going to kind of balance it out a bit better, because even if you then have that happening, they're not all going to be next to each other. They're going to be then spread around throughout the whole journal, which, you know, just probably will look better at the end. I mean, again, that's just my opinion. And please don't feel like, you know, or, you know, what I say goes. I'm just kind of, yeah, voicing my personal thoughts on it, really. So let's quickly dry these off. Like I said before, I mean, you can see this dries really quickly. So, you know, it is a brilliant way to actually just get colour onto your page, or not colour, but, you know, cover up your text. It's very, very quick. And, you know, I think kind of just works really, really well. So I might use one of my book page pockets that I made for this journal now. So let's just take this and just trim off my threads from the sewing machine. Okay. Right. Okie dokie. So this one here is just a flimsy page, which, you know, it's ready for journaling, if you see what I mean. I probably won't put anything much on here at all, purely because it's not got any weight to this page. So, you know, it couldn't really take something weighty being glued on there. It would likely, you know, tear the page or something. So I will probably just keep it completely plain, or maybe just kind of maybe staple something on quite lightweight, or, you know, maybe put a postage stamp on, or maybe stamp something on there, something like that. You know, if I don't want to keep it completely plain, I could just decorate it with something very flimsy, very light, or, you know, a stamp, which of course weighs nothing at all. To actually kind of embellish it with a pocket or anything, I personally feel it probably wouldn't be able to take the weight, and it would kind of compromise the robustness of that page. So yeah, I probably won't do that. Right, let's have a quick look now and see what else do I have in my vintage stuff that I brought along. Okay, what do I have? Well, I have got more of the photographs. And I mean, those photographs are very cute to use, aren't they? So, I mean, I could even have like a photograph there. I've also got some more of that gorgeous sheet music cover. Again, might just tear that down. You know, I might decide not to use it, but, well, you know, we could just put something like that on the facing page. Just, you know, for a little tiny bit of decorative effect, really. You know, or even could just tear that in half and just have just a tiny bit. Just a tiny bit coming off or something. Something like that. Right, let's just go back in here. What does that say? Oh, price, 2 shillings, this says. Okay. I don't know what 2 shillings is. Yeah, my mum's tried to explain it to me before, but oh, it sounds very confusing. I don't really get it. But yeah, probably lots of people out there would be able to say how it works, but I'm not quite sure myself. So I wouldn't like to try and, well, I couldn't, even if I wanted to, you know, try and guess or explain or, yeah, give any kind of detail as to what that means, because I have no idea whatsoever. Right. Also got this book page, which, yeah, I would put this in as a piece of ephemera, but then I'm thinking, oh, perhaps I'd prefer this on there. Although, to be honest, I mean, this is perfect to just put in as a pull-out piece of of ephemera. So yeah, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to just keep this to probably tuck into a pocket, maybe even this pocket. So yeah, that can just tuck in like that. So on here we could have price 2 shillings. Do we want this photograph down here? I mean, I quite like the photograph. What do you guys think? It's quite nice, isn't it? I mean, it is quite big, so it's taken up more or less all of that bottom pocket, which, you know, perhaps it's too big and we'd be better off with something smaller. Or we could tear that photograph down, I suppose. Oh, this is now not wanting to glue because, of course, that paint's a little bit damp there. Again, just use that trick of the hot glue just to kind of keep that in place. Right, let's glue this down. Okay. Like that. Yep, that's rather nice. And then, do we want that there? Let's just have a look and see what else we've got. So I've got all of this now on the back of one of these sheet music covers. Oh, is it the same? No, it's not the same. It looked the same. But yeah, they're saying different things. Which I do absolutely love all of this kind of stuff as well. So definitely could use something from here. Thinking possibly could use this. I'm not sure whether that's all going to fit, but let's try tearing this off. So need to be a bit careful here that I'm not, you know, tearing into this. Oh my goodness. It's very close to that other text, so it's a bit difficult to actually tear along there, but okay, right. Well, not too bad. Oh, terrible on the other side. But luckily I don't need the other side, so that's fine. So yeah, what we could do is, let's just see. Okay, so it's not going to fit all of it, but I could have that. Like that, okay. Maybe something like that. Looks quite pretty, doesn't it? And then I'm thinking, again, one of these flowers probably might look quite good on there. I mean, I know they're a bit gold, but they, you know, they're pretty neutral, aren't they? I mean, it doesn't really get much more neutral than that, does it? Right, let me just ink this up. Okay. Because it's a little bit on the grey side, and yeah, probably want it sort of more browny. So that looks better straight away, doesn't it? Yeah. I might just have to ink this up a little bit as well. So this is vintage book page, but, you know, as you can see, I mean, it's not particularly discoloured or anything. I mean, it's an ivory coloured book page in the first place, but it's not, you know, it's not looking antique or discoloured in that perspective, you know, from that perspective at all. So, yeah, let's just see. Maybe something like that. And then, let's just see. I know. Again, not keeping it neutral. So again, just going completely the other way to what I said about keeping everything completely neutral. But I mean, this is neutral for me, to be honest. You know, this is pretty neutral. You know, I think I would struggle to make it any more neutral than this, really. So yeah, I feel like it's, you know, for me, it's pretty neutral. Right, okay, so I quite like that. Now, what would I like to have on there as well? Thinking actually doily would be really good. And I can't now see any doily. You know, kind of since moving my room around, I'm actually not too sure now what I've done with my doilies. I had about 3 that were behind me. They've kind of been used up, And now I'm not sure where my other doilies are. Let me just quickly have a look in my... Oh, here we go. Hold on. Got some here. Right, okay. I think that's a little bit pinky, but that's not too bad. I think it's probably just been coffee dyed. Yeah, okay, right. So let's put that down. It might have been food coloured, to be honest. I'm not too sure. So, yeah, let's pop that there. And then this one, you can pop down there. Okay. Like that. Oops. Whole thing slides now. So yeah, quite like that. Now let's just see if we want to have any lace or anything. So again, what I would do is probably ink this up so it's a little bit more vintage looking. Again, this is just that sort of go-to lace of mine. It's not that lovely one that I'm hoarding because I've used quite a bit of that already. Can't be too generous with it. I mean, straight away that looks gorgeous, doesn't it? So yeah, I'm just going to literally hot glue this. And again, you know, I mean, I'm just using the hot glue just for kind of speed and saves me, you know, pressing it down for ages. It's going over the top of that lace anyway. So it's just, you know, a good way to clamp that lace down and not have to press it for ages. It's done like that. Okay. So yeah, that looks very pretty, doesn't it? And then maybe just that little flower in the corner as well. Oops, check I'm gluing it the right way up. I think that's the right way. Like that. Okay. Love how that looks. That is so gorgeous. Now, shall we have a postage stamp maybe in the corner of somewhere as well? It's quite nice there. Let me just ink this up a bit. You know, again, this is vintage, but you know, surprising how often, you know, vintage pieces, they're not necessarily very discoloured, are they? So, you know, I quite like it there, I think. Okay. Yeah. So I'm just going to, like we did on the other page, just literally ink around the pages, just very roughly. You know, again, we're just kind of grunging them up, getting a bit of, yeah, a bit of vintageness looking on them. Okay. So, you know, just covering up some of that paint so as it doesn't look too pristine. Yeah, just glue that down together, but again, it doesn't really matter. That's fine. Right, so then we can take a couple of bits of ephemera and pop those into our pockets. So, like that. Okay. Well, I think that looks pretty nice. I forgot to put something in the pockets in the other page, so let's just quickly flick back there. So onto here. So yeah, now I've got again more of that book. I love it when you get the you know, sort of fly pages of books, because they're perfect for using as ephemera, because you've got one side with kind of vintage bits and pieces on there, and then you've got the other side which is completely plain for journaling. So just think they're, you know, ideal things to be able to tuck into pockets and what have you. So let's just see if this will fit in here. I might have to trim it down slightly. Don't think it will go up there. So yeah, let's just trim this down very slightly. Maybe trim it down on this side as well. Okay. Okey-dokey. And then just, yeah, let's see. Okay, looking good. So we've got that one in there. And then up here, oh, I might have to keep this piece for something else, but we've got some more photographs. So we've got the actual bag itself. So of course I can put something in the actual bag. Oops, the actual bag itself, if I can actually get to it. There it is. Like that. Okay. And then of course we've got this, which we did as a tuck spot, which is kind of in the back of it as well. So let's just see what we've got here. So this is teeny weeny book, but again, just seeing whether I've got any of the sort of blankish pages. Oh, this is a tiny book, isn't it? Teeny weeny. Right, let's just do this. So just going to tear down on the front cover. Okay, like that. Oh, that's quite nice, isn't it? Now, does this fit in here is the question. Oh, no, it doesn't. Because I've obviously now glued that wax seal down, so it needs to be narrower than this. Oh, that's so annoying. Hadn't even thought of that when I obviously glued that wax seal on. So, well, we might just have to go for another photograph or something. Oh, actually, I have got some other little bits and pieces here, which I think I'd made a while ago. Yeah, I've made some little pads. So let's just see whether I've got one here that might fit. Okay, what about this one? Oh, it's massively wide, isn't it? I wonder if I cut that down. Okay, just trim it down on this side as well. Okay. Okay, not too bad. I mean, it's not brilliant, but it's not too bad. So let me just come in slightly more with that. And I'm just going to tear this bottom edge off slightly. So this is all made from some actual vintage bits and pieces. So again, I'd made these a few weeks ago, I think, actually. Just in like slow time whilst I was watching TV. So yeah, but they are actually genuine vintage pieces of ephemera. So they're just absolutely perfect for this book. So again, just going to take that little bit of lace and just snip that down here. And then just, again, ink that up. So it's looking a bit more vintage rather than brand new, which of course it is. Brand new, that is, not vintage. But it's a nice lace, I think. So, yeah, even though it's not vintage, I think it does look always very, very pretty. Oops. Okay. Just pop that lace over there. And then just on the back. Again, just glue that down on the back. Okay, like that. Looking good, looking good. Right, so I could just now snip that out a bit so it's not quite such a lot of lace kind of hanging. Like that. Okay. Just need to be a bit careful that this now doesn't all just glue straight onto the page, which of course it might, you know, if I'm not a bit careful. So yeah, press that down. Oops, just going to use a little tiny dab of hot glue to just okay. And then that can then go into that little tuck spot there, the whole thing. So yeah, I mean, it's coming along, isn't it? You know, we've done obviously the 2 pages and yeah, the rest of the pages obviously will need painting up and yeah, then decorating. But I hope you like the bits that we have done so far. I think it looks very nice and vintage. It's got quite a nice vintagey kind of squishy type feel already. And, you know, hopefully that's only going to get better from here on in. So, yeah, I hope that you like it. And thank you so much for watching. I will see you guys tomorrow. Thanks then. Bye.